3 rounds remain with only 13 points separating the world champion Pecco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin after an exceptional Thai Grand Prix 2 weekends ago. One of the closest podium finishes in Premier Class history, with Martin, Binder and Bagnaia throwing everything at it right up until the final lap. I hope you've managed to catch your breath in the weekend off. Myself and Simon Crayford just about as we come here to Malaysia expecting more. What a run of races we're on at the minute. The Grand Prix in Australia was frenetic with changes on the final lap. Johan Zarco finally taking a career first win, and then we're treated to yet more, in my humble opinion, even better racing in Thailand. What a fight it was between the 3 top men in the World Championship, and of course that had huge effects on the World Championship fight, with Martin not only taking a dominant sprint win on Saturday that we've become oh so used to now, but that felt like a massive win for Jorge Martin. Not only the manner in which he did it, but also to have managed to beat Bagnaia once again in a head-to-head battle. You'd now say it's 2-0 to him in 2023 after their fight at the Saxon Ring as well. Just mentally first, how much of a body blow was that from Martin to Bagnaia?
I think, well, Jorge said himself that he won through strategy, getting everything right, rather than having outright speed, which he's had at other races, you know. And he said he didn't have that Sunday in Thailand. He just managed everything better, got the start, which to do that you also need the qualifying. So the whole weekend he put together really well, you know, from Friday on, and then in a battle, and where he said his outright speed was so similar to his opposition, but he still managed to win it, and I think that's why he was so happy.
In our behind-the-scenes video that you've just seen there, he admitted he's not been sleeping particularly well, or wasn't on the run-up to Sunday's Thai Grand Prix, and said in the press conference afterwards as well, he was so stressed and nervous going into the race. We've spoken at length about it being a fight at times between brawn and brains, between the speed of Martin and the intelligence of Bagnaia. So for the tables to have turned there, and Martin to have managed to beat out Bagnaia with intelligence, with brains, just how big for him will that have been?
I think you're right, but also feeling that pressure and not failing, not crashing, where it's so easy to do, you know, not burning up that tyre, because a lot of it came down to that rear tyre, and managing front tyre pressure, but rear tyre, because over the race distance on Sunday at Thailand, they used all of the tyre, which is the plan, you know, like a perfect race is to do that, is consume everything you've got and still win it. And that's what Martin did, and it would have been so easy to over push, use too much, and then not have enough left for the fight at the end. And I think a bit came into play because Martin's weekend went so perfectly from Friday, which he's done regularly better than his opposition, meaning hit the ground running Friday, be fast, and end up on pole, get the start, and then not have to overtake anyone, because every time you overtake someone, you have to exit the corner before using lots of rear tyre to be able to get up close to them, to be able to outbrake them. And doing that repeatedly, like Brad had to do and like Pecco had to do, you use more rear tyre and you've got less for the fight at the end. And that's the difference, I believe, between between Brad Binder's and Pecco's race and Jorge's race.
In terms of the World Championship, now, as we said, 13 points splitting them. For me, it's almost easy to forget that it's still Bagnaia leading this World Championship, because that felt like such a momentum shifter. Did you get the same sense walking away from Thailand?
The main sense that I got is that we're getting treated to a proper fight, because I was going to say both, but all 3 of those riders fighting for the win are really on form, and that's the bit I love to get treated to, is they've all got the pace, you know, to win it. It really came down to all those finer points that I was just mentioning.
Right now, for me, it feels as though Martin is obviously the man in form. If it wasn't for mistakes in Indonesia, if it wasn't for the tyre choice in Australia, this could be a completely different championship picture. But of course, those things happened, which means we are where we are. But certainly, the momentum is with him. He's the form man. What does Bagnaia need to change to make sure that Martin doesn't continue as he is?
If we step back a bit and look at the whole season, how it's been going, it was Pecco on form first. I've mentioned this before. He was the one that turned up to Portimao, won the sprint and the main race. He was on form. He was the first one to make friends with that 23 spec, which has slightly different engine. It doesn't stop the same, and it's taken all of the riders a while to get used to it. His teammate, Anaya, is still struggling with that. It took Pecco less time. Then Jorge Martin took a few races and clicked. Then we saw Pecco make a mistake, Jorge Martin on form, so the balance of power swing, and now you're seeing Pecco come back, and that's why I'm excited. We're getting treated to so many riders on form, and also KTM have made that step with the carbon chassis. Brad's riding the wheels off it. He was there as well. I just hope we see more of this, and even someone else turn up.
The tensions building in the World Championship fight between the Italian and the Spaniards, but also between the teams as well. There's some jibes going in both directions. It was put to Gino Borsoi, I think, after the conclusion of the Thai Grand Prix, that Martin was able to manage that pressure, that expectation that he had himself admitted. And he said, pressure? I think it's the guys in red that are feeling the pressure at the moment. Would you go along with that?
I know what you're saying, and externally watching, it did come across like that. But when I talk one-on-one with these guys, there doesn't seem to be any tension at all. They're saying it's more about being clever and managing, like they have admiration for the teams and riders that get it right, especially on Sunday, and put the whole weekend together. I think it's more about that. There's admiration for each other when the other one does the job,
But at the same time, the guys in reds would, of course, that being Gigi Dall'Igna, Paolo Trebatti, although would prefer, and Davide Tardozzi, of course, who works solely for the factory team, would prefer the man in reds, an Italian, on an Italian bike, to win this World Championship.
And they don't hide it. When Pecco does well or doesn't do well, you see it all over their faces, of course, because he's their boy, Yeah. But doesn't every team feel like that? They're behind their rider. So all I'm saying is, looking from the outside, when you see it all, I felt the same as you, but when you talk to them, it doesn't feel like any animosity. It's more respect, I honestly feel that.
Right now, as things stand, 3 to go, 3 Grand Prix, 3 sprints. Who do you think's in the driving seat?
Well, I slightly Jorge, yes, because he's been repeatedly, like I said, hitting the ground, running on Friday and holding on to that all the way to the end of Sunday. But I love that, like I said before, it's getting to the point where we're looking like we're going to see a real fight. Pecco's on his way back, to that same sort of form. And I hope what I feel comes to fruition and we see a proper scrap all the way to Valencia. That's what I hope.
We certainly need to see Pecco, or he needs to see himself and the team hit the ground running on Friday. You do feel that performances on Friday and Saturday morning in qualifying have hurt him of late.
Exactly.
It's to get that right, of course. This is a place where they have a lot of data tested here at the start of the year as well. May well help him to be able to hit the ground running this weekend. But then again, the forecast suggests that we're going to get some showers throughout the course of the weekend. So, as ever, predict the unpredictable in MotoGP in 2023. We've spoken at length, of course, about the 2 key men in the World Championship, 13 points split between them, but we need to speak about Brad Binder as well. An exceptional ride in Thailand to, across the line, split the 2 Ducatis once again, caught out by going onto the green by a millimetre, meaning in the end he did take 3rd place, but a hard-fought 3rd place indeed for Brad.
And he admitted that he woke up on Sunday morning and said, I'm going to win today. I love that, just deciding, I think today's my day, I can do it. And he digs so deep. deep, doesn't he? Unbelievable deep to try and make it happen. And I really felt that it was the qualifying and the overtakes he had to make on those early laps that used more tyre. Maybe it's bike setup, machine, something as well, but he seemed to have used more tyre and be fighting, struggling at those last couple of laps more than the other two. That's what I felt. And but I really think it all comes down to having the qualifying to be able to start and not have to overtake in that case anyway. But KTM, really impressive that they keep finding ways during the season to go faster, and Brad, I mean, you and I were speaking earlier about actually, I'll let you put it to everyone, about Brad and the other KTMs.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that in a second. Just before that, though, I know, well, we both are massive fans of Brad and what he's able to do on a motorcycle.
Yes.
Now getting to 2.5 years since he's last won a MotoGP race, and only 2 wins to his name as well. The first one in Brno was under strange circumstances. The one that he won in Austria, of course, when he magnificently rode slick tyres in the wet. But again, in strange circumstances, just purely playing devil's advocate. Was there much more he could have done to try and win that race? It was obviously such a huge opportunity. I'm sure that he will be frustrated at the amount of time that has elapsed now without him being able to win a Grand Prix.
Definitely. He said that. He said it's time, it's too long, publicly. But I feel, he said, he put it all on the table, watching, I totally agree. He threw everything at it. Those early laps, if you watch I was watching closely what he was doing, and he was making sure he got everyone out of the way and he could follow Jorge, even have a go. And then, especially later on, he had a go when he thought, was it 5-6 laps to go? Yeah. And he put the hammer down and couldn't get away, realised that I've got no tyre left, he later said. But I think he did everything that he could have to do that. I don't see him failing anywhere, touching the green. But I think that was partly down to having no rear grip, not being able to get it turned. So I really feel that the main difference, I'll repeat, was having to overtake and use more tyre early on, gave him less tyre to fight at the end. Same for Bagnaia. But otherwise, I think he did a magic job. And I'd like to throw in there that I don't believe, I'm really impressed that KTM keep improving, finding that chassis. They're finding, because it's not easy to do during a season. You can look at everyone else. They struggle to make a step forward during the season, which KTM did. But I don't believe they're on a level playing field yet. I believe KTM is still one step behind Ducati in, if you compare their bikes, on every aspect.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Brad was right there for the win still. So what more can you do?
The topic you were touching on, I've seen a couple of people commenting on social media and looking at the results after the Thai Grand Prix. Brad, second across the line, third in the end. Jack Miller, 16th. Paul and Augusto outside of the points as well. It's such a huge disparity between what Brad's able to do and the rest of the KTM/gas machines are able to do. Are KTM at risk potentially of going down the same avenue that Honda and Mark were in a couple of years ago, whereby it was a bike that only one rider was able to get the most out of? Because Brad's riding style, although fantastic to watch, is certainly unique.
That's a good point. The first thing I thought of when you were putting all that to me is, you were saying how far off the other KTM riders are. The thing is, I don't think they're as far off as the results show, because as Johann Zarco only said today in a debrief, you need to be on those first 2 rows to have a chance of podium. If you're outside there, you're caught up in so much that it makes the race impossible, meaning, you get so much fighting in there, using the tyre, overheating the front tyre, pushed off the track by somebody until your result looks terrible, But what I'm saying is the difference in result is huge, but to fix that, it's about qualifying. If you can qualify in those first 2 rows, then you have a chance of doing something way better than you would have if you didn't. So it's a nightmare, but it makes it look worse than it is. For everybody that doesn't qualify in those first 2 rows, they've got this horrible situation where their race could go down the drain, like their whole weekend just because of qualifying, So that's the first point. The second bit is about development. Yes, there could be some areas that they're heading one way, but Brad obviously carries corner speed, and makes that work. Even in the post-race comments between riders, you could hear Brad not being able to stop the bike, but carrying the speed. Even between Ducati and KTM, there's a difference. I think there's a difference also rider-wise, but by carrying corner speed, you need less rear grip. Like the Aprilias have proved that. People say, Aprilias have got good rear grip. But Aleix said, no, but it's because I carry corner speed. You need less to get back up to speed because you're already halfway there, by carrying the speed. And I think Brad is doing this because he has to. If you stop the bike, you need more rear grip and you haven't got it. It's spinning. So he's found a way to make it work. That's how I feel. And I believe the others are following him this way because it works.
Certainly an interesting discussion, and
yes, I'm not saying I am right, but that's my feeling at the moment. Yes,
absolutely, and that's why we ask you the questions to get what you think and get your analysis on it. It's certainly, without doubt, needs a big turnaround from Jack Miller at the moment. You do get the sense he's in a bit of a rut, and results need to come thick and fast, especially when you've got Pedro Acosta likely wrapping up a Moto2 World Championship this weekend, and you won't be surprised if he hits the ground running in MotoGP next year. Speaking of rookies, we have got one confirmed. We may well have 2 on the grid next year. Paddock talk at the moment suggesting that Victor last time out in the Moto2 class in Buren, Fermin Aldeguer in talks with Repsol Honda over replacing Marc Marquez. Initially, there was talks ongoing with Miguel Oliveira. Maverick Vinales was contacted as well.
Even Aleix was in the mix a little.
In recent weeks, we found out that Luca Marini had been contacted. Fabio Di Gianantonio in the mix as well, but now looks as though at only 18 years of age, with only 45 Grand Prix starts to his name, Fermin Aldeguer may well be the man to replace Marc Marquez. That's a big call from Repsol Honda, Alberto Puig and everyone else, if that is to be the case. What do you think of that?
Do you know what it reminds me of? Is everyone going, really? When Petronas signed Fabio, and Fabio had won 1 race. He actually won 2, but a tyre pressure got him cancelled out of the Japanese win that he had. The thing is, I actually really like it.
Yeah?
I like it because I like him. I like him as a person when I talk to him, and I like the talent that he's shown. Yes, it's a massive leap to go jump on the Repsol Honda, and I don't envy him because, when Fabio jumped on the Yamaha was a good bike, very competitive, and he could, by adapting quickly, fight even for the win, which was amazing. Fermin's not going to have that pleasure, is he? Unless Honda turn it around extremely fast, for next year's machine. If he gets the job, I'm just saying, hypothetically, if he does get the job, he's not going to have that same luxury of turning up, and if you do your job, you see the result. It's going to be tough. But from Honda's point of view, I understand. As Tucker said in his debrief today, look, we've got himself, Tucker, they've got Joan Mir, and they've got Johan Zarco, 3 experienced riders that can give feedback to Honda to improve their bike. And when you look at it like that, why not take a gamble on a new super talent, that can really show the more experienced riders what you can do just on pure ability, and hunger. And so that's always nice to have a look. And if they do turn the bike around, if it happens, Fermin could be in the right seat that he wouldn't have got if Honda hadn't had their dip.
Absolutely. We saw a photo with Aleix Espargaro there. He has a great relationship, not only with Aleix, but also Jorge Martin as well. But Aleix was asked earlier today about the possibility of Firmin moving up. He said technically, ability-wise, talent-wise, yes, he's ready. The only thing that concerned him was, does he have the maturity, the mental toughness at just 18 to be able to deal with what looks
the
like...
manure.
Yeah.
To dig himself out of that would be... that is such a good point. Sorry to butt in.
No.
Absolutely fantastic, because that is what I was meaning by him coming in there. The mental strength you need to battle through those hard times. It's hard for the experienced riders, but at 18, it's almost impossible. So they've really got to look after the young man at the same time.
And to jump into Marc Marquez's shoes as well. I mean, for any rider, that is a massive task. And I know that they'll say, oh, it's a new era, it's a new chapter, but they're peeling off the 93 sticker on Sunday in Valencia, and they may well be putting your 54 number on. You're replacing Marc Marquez.
Yeah, the thing is, the way, if it does happen, the way I look at it is Honda will look at it like this as well. That first year is about learning, like it always is, learning how to ride a MotoGP bike, all its electronic controls, how to give feedback, how they work, the brakes, the tyres, everything. And then think about, results. And Honda will be saying that to him. So we've just got to give him that first year. But I hope that if it happens, he doesn't get too mentally battered by an uncompetitive machine. Let's hope Honda turn up to Valencia. Apparently they're working on the bike right now. They turn up to Valencia with a surprise, a positive surprise for their riders.
Fabio Di Giannantonio was under stress to point out that he's still in the mix, though, for that seat. But on Digi's side, I mean, if they were to opt with Aldeguer, you have to feel sorry for the Italian. I mean, what more can he do? It has been, obviously, a very difficult journey for him to get to the point where he's at now. But in Phillip Island, he was on the podium. He's been qualifying regularly in the front two rows of the grid. I mean, he's showcased the fact that he can be competitive on a MotoGP bike now. Surely, is that not the better option for Honda, a man not only with MotoGP experience, but experience on the best bike on the grid?
If you're offering a one-year deal, like the gossip has been that Honda are offering, yes, you're better off to go with Digi, you are. But if I doubt that Firmin would jump into a one-year,
his manager has said he won't.
Yeah, so that's the way to look at it. If you're a one-year deal, Fabio, all day. But future-wise, people love to try and find the next super talent, don't they? And Firmin is looking like that. So I can understand why they're trying to grab him while they can.
Aleix said as well, if he was to wait one more year, it may well be in 2024 that not only has he got a Moto2 World Championship under his belt, but he'll be able to select whatever bike he wants, which for Firmin is great. But for Honda, you wouldn't imagine that they're going to be the pick of the bunch if Ducati or KTM or Aprilia come calling at the end of 24. So you can understand them wanting to try and get a talent like that tied down at this opportunity.
Yep. And then it's all on Honda's shoulders to turn their machine around. And then, like Mark said today in the debrief, then you can go seriously fishing for the best riders.
No indication when we're going to get some news, but I would imagine pretty soon, because the Valencia test is 2 weeks on Tuesday. That's coming around pretty quick. So Repsol Honda need to let us know exactly who's going to be on their bikes next year.
Just making sure we haven't got any riders waiting for us.
No, go ahead.
I've just got a little point to throw in, because we were talking about championship contenders earlier.
Yep.
And a point I didn't throw in, sorry to drive you sideways here, that I think is very important is it's been a bit of talk about it on social media, and that is the tyre pressure thing.
Yes.
This is the last race that I was jet lagged yesterday and thought it was Thailand, but this is the last race that you have the super high temperatures, if the sun's out and not raining, and the high braking forces where you have the tyre temperature problems. So I expected, if it's dry, to have front tyre temperature problems here. And if that's the case, Jorge has no other leeway, meaning if he gets under, he gets penalised 3 seconds, where Pecco has. So that could come into play. I'm not saying Pecco could use his card here. I'm saying you can try to be more accurate on what will work and knowing you're not going to be penalised, you know. You don't have to go high to be safe, put it that way. And that can make a big difference in performance.
That's because after the Thai Grand Prix, Jorge Martin was given his first official warning for being under the permitted front tyre pressure, meaning that a second offence would result in a 3-second time penalty. Pecco Bagnaia, however, doesn't have a warning at
So he has kind of one free pass.
a wild card, shall we say, a joker to play.
The future races, one's at night, so you don't have the same track temperatures. The other's in Valencia in autumn. It could be very cold, usually is.
I think autumn's been kind. Winter, I would say. It's nearly December, but anyway, that's to come. Woolly hats at the ready. Before that, we've got our first and only press conference, and it's a blockbuster one as well. Matt Burt, as ever, talking you through it alongside world champion Pecco Bagnaia, Jorge Martin, Marco Bezzecchi and Brad Binder.